Welcome back, my friends, to the Wild Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Haley Pindle. I'm an online PT and nutrition coach here to help you heal from your almond mom and live a more balanced and flexible lifestyle with fitness and nutrition. So sit back, relax, grab a high protein snack, and let's get into this week's episode. Welcome, you cool cats and kittens. This week's episode, I'm going to be talking about intuitive eating versus macro tracking. Is macro tracking disordered? How do I know if macro tracking is disordered for me? And all of that jazz. I have a mixed feelings about that. So if you're interested in this topic, stay with me here. I'm going to try and not ramble a lot. However, this is a very passionate topic for me. So let's get into it. Firstly, I'll start with my relationship with food, my relationship with tracking macros and intuitive eating. So, my take on the whole thing is I started out tracking macros when I first started dieting. Dieting is a beast, and I didn't know anything and fucking nothing about nutrition when I first started dieting, which is a recipe for disaster, by the way, because I started out eating 1,200 calories because that's what my fitness pal told me to do. And I was very obedient. I wanted to get to my goal. So I did what it said. And then I fell into some disordered eating habits. And suddenly I was scared of food. Like, what? How does that happen? Well, it happens when I'm too restrictive and I deem foods as good and bad. And some foods just have higher calories and higher fat, higher carbs, yada, yada, yada. However, I didn't know that. I just knew diet mentality. That's all I knew. So at that time, tracking macros was a little bit toxic for me because I didn't have the mindset of flexibility and I was very rigid. I needed to track every calorie, every macro. And if I went over and I saw that red number staring back at me on my fitness pal, I would feel guilty. I would use tracking as a crutch to restrict the next few days or the next day. Sometimes I'd even fast until dinner time. Yes, you heard that. I would fast until fucking dinner time because I had overeaten and then restricted. I guess you could say that tracking became a little bit of a game for me where even if I did go over my calories, I would throw in the towel and say, you know what, I can just restrict all day tomorrow and have a heyday today. So I would binge and then use my calorie tracker to restrict the next day or the next few days. And it was just a very bad cycle to be in because you mess up and then you fix it and then you feel like it's okay to do again when it's not. And you somehow end up not knowing how to get out of the cycle, which I thankfully have. And now I teach my clients how to do the same thing because it's a very sad life to live when you're just thinking about food constantly and thinking about how to restrict because you fucked up. So, if you're in that position right now, this is going to be a very valuable episode for you. I don't think that tracking macros is inherently bad at all. I use it with my clients, like I said, because it is a great tool just to have a basic understanding of nutrition and how foods affect your body, how foods affect your gut health, because everyone's different, right? The problem is when you already have an unhealthy relationship with food and your body, and you're using tracking macros as a crutch for you. And your ED voice is kind of using it to control your body in the form of restriction and then overcompensating and then restricting again and just landing in the whole binge and restrict cycle, start over on Monday bullshit. Because restriction is the disordered part. Restriction leads to binge eating, and all diets across the board have one common denominator in it, and that is restriction, which is why a lot of you, if you have had disordered eating, started with a diet. Not all diets, I'll give it, lead to disordered eating. However, every single person who's had disordered eating has had some sort of restrictive diet in the past, whether that be because you have allergies or you wanted to lose weight, it doesn't matter. It all started with restriction. And that is also why this is the statistic, why can't I say that? of 95% of diets fail across the board within the first couple years because the restriction, you get to your goal weight and then you fall off because one, your metabolism is fucked from the low calorie consumption, and two, you're just so tired. You need some relief. And I get it. You're a biological human with needs, and one of those needs is food. On top of all that, a lot of diets deem foods good and bad, like they have some sort of moral, and then you go ahead and attach that moral to yourself. So when you eat cake, you feel like a bad person and you feel guilt. I'm going to tell you right now that guilt is what is leading you to restrict and leading you back into that cycle. You got to get rid of the guilt and just move on with your fucking life. Because there's going to be a million and one times where you're going to have to eat cake or you're going to eat a cookie at your grandma's house and you're going to have to move the fuck on and not mess yourself up because that's where you're messing up. And it's not only that, it's just a very sad way to view food. As much as food is fuel, and I'm a huge advocate for that, food is also meant for pleasure. It's not supposed to be your only form of pleasure. However, it is a form of pleasure, and it's okay to eat when you're not hungry, and it's okay to not be perfect with your diet because perfection is unattainable and unsustainable. On the other side of things, there's intuitive eating. And I feel like there's this push and pull between these two cult like cliques where the intuitive eaters are like, tracking macros is so bad, you should only listen to your body. And then the calorie trackers, or like the dieters, I'd say, I think I'll phrase it like that, like the dieters versus the intuitive eaters and like the anti-dieters, which I feel like I'm kind of more in the gray area, more in the middle of it, are like contenders, because the dieters are like, I can't lose weight unless I'm on track. And the intuitive eaters are like, tracking calories is completely bad. You should not do it because tracking calories is disordered, which it's not. If you use it correctly, which I do teach my clients to track correctly, as I believe, this is my personal opinion. Intuitive eaters, don't come at me. You have to earn the right to intuitive eat and simultaneously achieve your fitness goals and achieve your physique goals. Because if you don't know what's in your food and you don't know how food affects you, you're going to have a fucking hard time achieving any kind of physique goal in like a relatively fast time frame, or it's going to take forever and you're going to get really frustrated because there's something called portion sizes, and whether you like it or not, it is about calories in versus calories out. However, our view of what enough calories is very skewed and very low, especially for women. You should not be eating 1,500 calories. P.S. The more important thing to remember about tracking macros and tracking calories is to keep your feelings out of it. Treat yourself as kind of like a test subject, if you will, or like a guinea pig, where you're just testing out these macros. If you gain weight, you gain weight. If you lose weight, you lose weight. Don't attach yourself to the result or the outcome. Just try and have fun along the way, and keep it subjective, right? Because numbers are just data points, whether that's weight or measurements or calories or macros. It's just a data point to track your progress. And macro tracking is a way to improve the process and the progress that you do make, but it is important to leave your mess ups outside with the dogs. Using calories and macros is just a way to improve your progress, right? Don't take it personally if you mess up, because you will mess up along this journey, unless you're a robot, which, depending what year you're watching this, you might be. But don't be so black and white with it. Try and live in the nice gray area. That's where the fun happens. That's where the enjoyment of this whole process happens. And you hear people say, make this a lifestyle, make it a habit. That's where you're going to make it a habit, in the gray area. I realize that I've gone this far and not explained macros to you. So a macro is a macronutrient. So protein, carbs, and fats. Protein and carbs have 4 calories per gram. Fats have 9 calories per gram. Side notes, alcohol has 7 calories per gram. However, tracking your macros inherently is tracking your calories just a little bit more accurately. And I like to use macros solely because protein does affect your results. So, for my clients, and for those of you watching who don't necessarily like to track, one, get over it. If you do have goals, what's more important to you? And two, just track your total protein and total calorie intake. Those are the two data points that are most important. End quote. Now, let's define intuitive eating. Intuitive eating is essentially going back to the days where you were a child and you ate when you're hungry, stopped when you were full, and ate foods that you genuinely enjoyed without attaching any kind of self worth towards the choices that you make. So you're not a good person for eating or choosing the salad. You're not a bad person for eating dessert. And that's not to say that you don't value your health. Sometimes a lot of people can go to the other side of the pendulum where they give up dieting and go fully head first into intuitive eating and eat bowls of cereal just because they can. And it's not about eating a bunch of stuff that you restricted, it is to incorporate them. However, you still value your health, and eating bowls of cereal is not. Sorry, guys. So, first principle of intuitive eating is honoring your hunger. Eating when you're hungry, not having timestamps set in your brain to push off hunger until lunchtime because it's 10 o'clock in the morning and you're not supposed to be hungry. Your body does what it does, and have a snack. And I fully support this idea of eating when you're hungry and incorporating, you know, intuitive eating with knowing what you're eating as well. Principle two of intuitive eating is honoring your hunger and not overstuffing yourself. Side note with this, I have a lot of clients who are trying to recover their period and trying to recover their metabolism, which eating when you're not hungry is necessary for that. Okay. When we don't eat enough food and enough calories, a couple things happen. One, the systems in our body are downregulated, one being our reproductive system. Another one that is most common is your digestive system. Hello, girls with digestive problems. So, in order to increase your metabolism, you do have to get uncomfortable and eat when you're not hungry just to get your calories in. Because what will happen is your body will adapt to that. Your metabolism will speed up and increase and start up all of the processes that it's been down regulating because you've been on such low calories. So, yes, honor your fullness, but also honor your goals. Principle three is honoring your cravings. I love this one. I used to be a serial baker of these healthified baked goods, which I still do. Don't get me wrong. I love a good, like, healthified recipe. However, if I truly want the real thing, like chocolate, I am a whore for chocolate. I'm going to have that and I'm going to move on with my life rather than push it off and push it off and push it off until I hit the point where I'm so defeated and so mentally drained that I just eventually binge on chocolate because that's not okay. Just let yourself have it and move on. You won't feel the need to overdo it. So, how do you get from tracking macros to intuitive eating? Personally, I believe that you do need to go through a process of tracking your macros, which is why that's in the first, second, and third phase of my program with my clients to get really good at knowing macros are in the foods that you eat so you can transition to an intuitive approach while also achieving or maintaining your goals. Because knowledge is power. Okay. So when we hit the point of my clients have gone through the process, they've nailed their macros, they've gotten to a place where their body is happy, healthy, they are happy and healthy, they're happy with their aesthetics and strength, and they can now do this on their own. We do transition them into more of an intuitive approach because we don't want to be grannies having to rely on counting macros and counting calories. Your body is a fucking smart unit. Okay, it can do this on your own as long as you teach it how to do it. It loves default mode. It loves to be in default mode, and you just have to get your body to that default mode for it to be smooth sailing. So once you get your body to that smooth sailing point, we will slowly add in days where we're not tracking calories, we're not tracking macros, and we're just going off of the hunger cues that we have now regulated through tracking macros. And what will happen is you'll find that you just hit the right amount of food without even putting it in my fitness pal, without even tracking your points. My client Sarah just had this happen. It was just Easter this past week, and she had been, eating chocolate and cookies because that's what's been around. And there's been a few days where she was planning her dinner and she was busy. She has a child, she's got a husband to take care of, and she couldn't track her macros until the next day. And what happened was she tracked them in and she fucking hit it on the nose without even trying because she's been doing this consistently. And also, side note, she didn't feel any guilt at Easter and also eating chocolate that whole week. She actually lost weight because we've healed her metabolism. We're continuing to heal her relationship with food and how she views food. And now she's reaping the benefits of it becoming easy. This is what people mean by being easy. And what people mean by hard in terms of your fitness journey or any other journey in that case, like your career, your relationships, it doesn't matter. Hard means you have to consciously make a choice you don't want to make. Okay. So, in terms of fitness, intuitive eating, you have to consciously make a choice that is uncomfortable for you, your current self, in order to get to a person and version of yourself that is comfortable with it. I hope that makes sense. I will be the first to tell you that this is not a walk in the park. Healing your relationship with food and learning your macros, learning calories, how food affects your body, and then transitioning into, you know, having it be more second nature is a long process. And you're going to mess up a fucking lot. There's going to be a lot of mess ups. It took me 9 years to get to the point where I am now. I did not have any guidance. I did this all myself. And I learned a lot. Let my mistakes not be your mistakes. Okay. That's why I do what I do, is to help you avoid the shit parts of this whole thing. And that's also why I've positioned my program in the way that it is, because I know what you're going through. I know what it feels like to feel so lost in your fitness journey and not seeing results and be frustrated as fuck. I know what it feels like to not want to rely on other things and, trackers for the rest of your life. It's not something that I advocate for. And I also know that it's a lot more. There's a lot more to this journey than just tracking your macros and then suddenly you're an intuitive eater because, you learn the logistics of it. That's not it. There's also a lot of inner dialogue you have to shift and behavioral changes you have to shift in order to transition as well, um, which is a whole other beast. Let me know if you guys want an episode on behavior change, and I can do that for you. So, to recap, in my professional opinion, I believe that macro tracking is the first step in order to transition into intuitive eating and also have fitness goals because whether you like it or not, you do value yourself on your body. It should not be your whole value. It's actually the least most interesting thing about you, but it does affect your health. Like your weight does affect your health. And not there is no health at every size. If you're obese, you are not healthy. I am sorry to say. However, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't accept yourself at whatever weight you're at. And it also does not mean that you should not love yourself at whatever weight you're at. It's okay to want to change your body. I feel like these days everyone's like, oh, I don't have fitness goals. I don't have any physique goals because I just love myself always, which is a little bit of a lie. We all know you. We know that it's a lie. Anyways, I hope that you got some sort of value from this episode. Still very new to this whole podcasting thing, so forgive my rambles. And that, my friends, is going to wrap up this week's episode of Wild Wellness Podcast. Hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one.